nutrition, 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 nutrition.
Good morning all. I'm Penny Hiwilepo-van. I'm a food scientist. Today's talk, we will be talking about food security in Namibia and mostly focusing on the role of agro-processing. As per previously speaker, he was talking about agro-biodiversity. So now we are adding another term, agro-processing, which is a building block from agro-biodiversity. So I will highlight on the impact of research, as I'm partly a researcher, even though the core function of my role is teaching, and toward mostly on development of remarkable product from our indigenous fruits and vegetables. When we are talking about agro-processing, a lot of you maybe you are wondering, what is agro-processing? So it's really the key and one of the aspects which require a lot of attention when it's come in Namibia, because it can contribute to our food security and to make sure that we utilize our natural resources by adding value and also reduce being dependent to imported food product. So we are well known to be known as a net importer. So what we do, we produce what we can eat, and we import what we can eat. So this has to come to an end. And focusing on agro-food processing could be one of the solutions to that. Value addition, in just a layman language, it's actually just conversion of agricultural produce into convenient food, which is safe, adequately having a longer shelf life, because as you know, most of our agricultural produce are having a very short shelf life, and also making sure that we take care of the aspect of healthier to make sure that our consumers are protected and provided with the nutrition they need. It also, when people are doing value addition, they also reduce dependence on import. So basically, if for instance, our previous speaker has spoke about the ombidi, if you add value, normally it's a seasonal product. You can prolong the keeping time and you can keep it even for a year. And that is basically the same aspect you are doing for going to the supermarket, where you consider to buy those frozen veggies as a higher quality product, but rather it's still a value-added product which you can do to your own produce, like mutete, for instance. It also transforms our traditional into stable food, being it dried and very, very important, it can turn those produce to people to look at it as a business concept, like our youth. They will look at it to think of like, I can have this farm producing this produce and I'll be able to add value and be able to make a life or a living from it. So being in the enterprise to be developed toward contributing to food security. So what does the research allow us to do when it comes now to a researcher? As a food scientist, you go in the lab, you understand the science behind the food. That is the science which allows you to understand, even for instance, if you heat your milk, you get a coating on the surface of your cup. What is that? To some people, they don't even know that it's the denaturation of protein and other food components which are good for your contribution to your nutritional value. So being a food science, you bring the aspect component, which are very important when it comes to value addition, or when contribute to developing products which can compete to the market. standard, complying to standard, like other food products you see in the market with a food nutritional composition. So as a food scientist, you will be able to understand the phytochemical. Everybody's talking about cancer issues these days and the link between antioxidant and also what we eat. On top of that, the vitamins. Do we even know what happened to our vitamins? They can claim that juice contains vitamin C. Is it really there? And if it's there, how much? So as a food scientist, you will be able to know that. And very important, other minerals, some can be very vital to our body. So like, for instance, calcium, iron. There are so many cases whereby people are told you are iron deficiency. What can you eat? We have all those traditional food products which are rich in those components. So this is just a snapshot to show you what we are neglecting. And we have it at our disposal. As he mentioned, that there are low-hanging fruits. For instance, we are all telling ourselves, consume a lot of oranges, like nowadays, to boost your immune system against COVID. But look at what you can find in what you have, or what your friend has, just a traditional plant, which is at your disposal. You can get even 7 times the vitamin C which you claim can be found in oranges. This is just an example. There are others, like for instance, marula fruits, for instance, has even more also than oranges. Look what it has, more than carrots. And the calcium which you can get from milk, there are people who are struggling to get a cup of milk. You can actually just sustain them by having a capsulated or sprinkle the powder of moringa on the food before it's consumed. You don't even need to cook it. You need just a spice, for instance, which you can use on the table. It's also 3 times the potassium. We all know that people consider potassium is difficult to find in food, but look at what we have. And 2 times the protein, which we find in milk, like for instance, the yogurt. So you can also make non-animal derived yogurt, which we incorporate or fortify and enrich those products with what we find at our disposal. So this shows you what you can do with moringa already, just so much. But what is happening? We are saying there is no innovative people. The food scientist knows all this. What is lacking? Policymakers, they need to stimulate the youth to be able to see what is happening and what is available. We have everything. We don't need to look at out of even our own country or out of Africa, for instance. So there are so much potential just by drying those leaves. Those plants grow very fast. In 4 years, you have a plant which is so big to give you enough volume. And team up and dry all those leaves and have a center where this product can be produced. This is typically what you see when you go into our open market, which is a common place where we go maybe when we want our traditional food. What is holding us to make nice product like you see in the picture? We can package because we can also at the end reduce post-harvest losses and at the same time have food products which comply to standard to be able to market them and even enter the international market, because these compounds are much more richer than what is available. Mutete, for instance, as you can see, those people are trying to sell. But at the end of the day, because they are selling at a not good environment where they lose a lot of moisture, and then at the end of the day, these products are not of higher quality. If one can just even package it, freeze it, you can have it even for over a year. You can stabilize it and be able to sell at any time. So you need to understand that mutete is one of my favorite plants. because it does so many things and it contains so much. It has potential to make a juice, and at the same time you can have it warm as a tea. You can also make other food products from it. And nutrient-dense product can be developed from it. These are the possible products you can make, even candies. You can make jam. You can have almost your whole diet full of our indigenous food products. This is just prototyping from the university level. Some of you maybe had a chance to buy some of those jam, Mauni jam, at the Windhoek show 2 years ago before the COVID hit us. These products are nutritious, and there are a lot of tourism sectors which are demanding them. You can make the juice. You can even keep the juice longer than the other type of juice when it's pressed, when it's combined with other fruit juices. Now I'll take you through some of the snapshot of what is going on research at the department. So we have worked on Baobab. Maybe some of you knows that plant. Different products can be made, even a juice also, a powder which can be incorporated in dairy products, like a yogurt, flavored. Why should we have always strawberry? Who said strawberry is the best? We don't even have strawberry fruits here. We don't grow them at massive, and the condition does not allow us. We can have mutete yogurt with what we have, and that can help us better. The watermelon, which are abundantly produced at the specific season in Namibia, the students have managed to make gummy bear made from that. Very nice product. And you can also make other products. You can make an instant, and you can feed the nation because the kids are familiar with that. It's not always necessary. When you see the potato powder in the sacket, you think it's an innovative product, but this can be also competing at the same level, and it's even much more nutritious than potato. We can have our own, instead of the caffeine coffee you have, you can do the drink made out of sorghum coffee. You roast it and you flavor it with different fruits. You can even use the peel, utilize the peel as a waste. You can make liquor, tequila, made from our own indigenous fruits. You can incorporate all the grains. For instance, even the marama beans, you can make a powder and incorporate it into baking and make cookies, make flakes for breakfast cereal, and you can develop quite a lot of products. You can make fat cooks, which is well known here. It's just to incorporate a specific percentage, a loaf of bread, which can be a product with something people are familiar with. You can also use to make a powder an instant product made from your cowpeas, and have all these, and all these are prototyped products at the department which has been there. The water lily, you can also use the tubers to make a thicken and develop products which can also compete in the market. Soup, you can incorporate even mopani worms. A lot of people are scared of mopani worm, but when the consumers were called to test the mopani soup, they couldn't recognize they were eating even mopani, because we told them these are the possible ingredients, but you have to tell us what you are eating. So they like it, even children who are scared. Water lily. You can develop a lot of products. Of course, there are challenges which we have, which are making maybe avoiding us to progress. Some people are not aware of the legal procedure to be followed, the food laws, compliance to standard, and others are scared of sharing their innovative ideas because they don't know what they are subjecting their ideas to. And then at the end, they will end up holding on their idea for 20 to 30 years. Once you have that innovative idea and you don't implement it, it's still not worth. It cannot be called anything. So it's time we team up and we share what we have. So we need to avoid also to be rain-fed dependent because the climate is changing, as Percy said. So we need to make sure that we do our agro-processing based on the response of the climate. Some of those plants I have mentioned, like mutete, the moringa, they are drought resistant. They will make you be able to produce products, either it's a good year or it's not a good year. And also start growing them. We need to domesticate them. We need to plant them. We need to look at them like commercial plants and have farms which are running those so that at the end, they can contribute to agribusiness, which are locally established. So we need to coordinate the research finding with policymakers and the private sectors. You don't need to do everything from the university level, but investors can pick up the very innovative ideas and develop it into a business. And at the end, we need motivated people, mostly youth. You need to stand up and start doing things instead of just talking. So with that, I have come to the end of my presentation. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for your highly interesting presentation. As a university don, one of the things that is expected of you and any other university lecturer and university for that reason is to generate knowledge that can inform policy formulation, policy implementation, and where necessary, policy modification. Now, there are a lot of indigenous plants, indigenous fruits that are scattered all over. I would want to know from you whether you have done any research to map, the indigenous fruits that occur in various parts of the country, so that just at a glance, a policy maker can say, we know that embe occurs naturally in this area. I'll give you a small example. I raise rabbits as a hobby. At any given time, I have about 150 rabbits. I know what I can do with rabbit urine. I know what I can do with rabbit skin. But I don't get anything out of the rabbit urine because I don't have the technology, I don't have the market for it. I know that if I can store my hides, I can sell them to people who make musical instruments like tambourines. The point I am making is that if you were to map with your students where some of these indigenous fruits are, because it is to be imagined that quite a lot of the fruits just go to waste because it is not commercially viable for a farmer in Epukiro or in Opuo to come to town to deliver 20 kgs of a particular fruit. But if you know where these plants are or these fruits are, and how can you link, what have you been doing? Who consumes the research that you generate? In other words, how do you ensure that your findings, which are so rich, actually get accessible, get known by policy formulators? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the question. It's a question which, it's like you read my mind. It's a question which has been already even, I'm saying maybe to be addressed. We just got a funding from NCRST in collaboration with Mozambique. The sender, their sender also like NCRST, and we got a fund to map at least some of those indigenous plants with the aim of adding value and also possible commercialization stage. So it is a little bit difficult as a scientist, as I have mentioned that I'm a researcher, but my core function is teaching. We do a lot of teaching. The graduates, for them to graduate, they need a thesis. A thesis can be having some of those products I have mentioned, but they are called samples at that level. These samples need someone, an innovative, and a transformation center, innovative technology center, which can transform, I'm going to repeat that word, can transform the research finding and package it into real use of the research finding. All the universities in the world which are doing very well, they are having those centers. And those centers understand very well how to come to the presentation, listen, and unfold the research findings to turn it into a commercial, or either call investors to come and listen to the pitch, and then at the end they implement or they start up the business. Unfortunately, at the department level, we can do a lot of research, but we don't have mandate. I have to use maybe the word mandate to start up businesses. But you can also imagine if the university is starting up businesses, the whole university will be mushrooming small business enterprises, because the process of value addition is unique and it has steps to be followed. From the sample, where a researcher is in giving the finding of the safety part, and then a prototyping, and the refinery stage, and the commercial stage where you are scaling up. So we need, that gap is what needs to be filled. As long as that gap is not filled, you will just see the research finding are out, and then the private sector will be always blaming the researcher, they are not doing anything. But at the end of the day, the researchers are doing their part, but this gap is not filled, and that is where even practical training centers are developed. A center which is just there for practical purposes, for doing learning by doing. Because to develop a product, you are not just learning the science behind it, but you are learning how to make it. How much water can you add? At what temperature can you cook, for instance, fixing all the parameters. But the research part, you are doing analysis. What is there? Vitamin C. What happened to vitamin C after heating, and so forth. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I am Lolita de Almeida from FAO, and I'm a graduate from UNAM. I'm a food scientist as well. While Dr. Penny was presenting, I actually acknowledged a few challenges from when I was a student till now, which is what she alluded, the transformation center and means of upscaling. I mean, processing has been happening. You go to open markets, they are processing a few, everything that she just mentioned. But the problem is then the standards, as she alluded, and the transformation center. And maybe my question is, how could we possibly have this transformation center? Who do we then reach out? I know it will take a lot of money because we have different products to start with, so different machinery would be needed. And also the other one thing that is a problem, and the reason why these products can't get to the market is because packaging is the problem, presentation. The reason why there are products in the shop is because the presentation is very nice. Even we saw the picture that she had looked at of the hibiscus from another country compared to ours, you know. You would go for something that's more attractive than the one that just looks not so attractive. Maybe those are the few issues that we are having. Processing is actually being taken up, but it's now the upscaling and the transformation center and the packaging and presentation. That is the current gap. How do we then move from that to address all the above?
Thank you very much, Lolita, for the question. It's a bit difficult to stand here and answer that question. But what is required, we need a country to look at value addition and to understand it. Because there's a difference when you talk about value addition and you don't understand it, what it entails. And if our policymaker, because this has to be pushed strongly from policymaker. No matter how much the country want to move, and policymakers do not understand it, because at the end of the day, you need to register to National Training Authority, that training center even. So if the policymaker understand it very well, then there will be a move, because we have very nice, beautiful document, being it Harambee, being it NDP5, they all talk about value addition. But when you come now to cascade down to see how is Harambee going to make sure that, or NDP5 going to make sure that we add value 70%? What model are we using? For a food scientist, I need to understand, to come up with one industry, it took us this much, and this is what we needed. So for us to be able to do it in 10 or 30 years, this is how we are going to move. But these nice documents does not tell us that. So we need to transform those and to have also a platform where issues for value additions are discussed and handled, implemented, what is coming out from the discussion, and further monitored, so that we see to support the university, even though universities are trying to have innovative centers and transformation centers, it's not enough. There are a lot of others which need support from the policymaker level. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Penny, for your presentation on agro-processing. I just wanted to get a feeling from you. How far are we from establishing a ministry of agro-processing, seeing that this is very important and it needs deliberate action to make sure it happens? Or is this work already being done under the Ministry of Agriculture, or probably the other long name for the Ministry of Industry? What do you think? Because without a deliberate action, you are correct, it will remain a lot of talking of possibilities without any serious action on the ground. Thank you.
Thank you, Prof, for the question. It's a difficult question. I think we are very far, if I have to be openly saying it, because if I compare what is happening here and what has been happening in the other country I lived for 7 years, where value addition is well taken care and agro-processing is also established well, I got a feeling we are far. Firstly, we need, people need to understand what it takes, what is value addition, what is agro-processing, not just a word to mention, to make it sound good. But it's a very complicated process, even just the process of product development. It's not a one thing you just go in the lab and you are done. It involves a lot of others. So I believe with a right push, maybe first to start with the policy or a protocol, and then after that, that can be gazetted. If that is approved, then you might see things happening. But very important, the government, private sectors have to invest to make it a priority, not just to think of we can always get product from outside the country, even what you can do. Almost all our produce here, they are living in a raw form, being it fish, being it fruits. We don't do anything. Even the jam we use every day almost at breakfast, we can't produce it. What is so difficult? It's just sugar and ingredient from fruits. But we are so laid back and relaxed that we do it the way it used to be done. We are not changing things. And we are very good in talking than in acting. So, provided that we really push it for implementation and making our politicians understand, you might see them maybe considering first a directorate, which talks about agro-processing, a platform, a session in the cabinet where people, expertise are invited and they can share their knowledge to contribute toward product development or agro-processing in general. Then you will see things happening.
Okay, it's Günther again, and I listened to you, I listened to the talk, it's interesting, but I think there's a missing link, and that is the consumer. If you create the demand for the produce, then the entrepreneurs amongst us will come up with solutions, irrespective of policies and regulations. You know, just hypothesis. If every Namibian takes a teaspoon of moringa every day, we don't need to export, we need to import. People are not aware of the produce. If the clientele of Super Spa demands these products, it takes half a year they are on the shelves. But what is the research component of creating a demand? How do you create demand amongst those people who have the money in the pocket to pay for it? I think that's a solution, not laws, regulation, policies, and Harambe and NPD. Okay, just some idea I want to share. And I regard that as the missing link. We create job creation, youth, income generation, whatever, in a vacuum. Create a system which is demanding products. Okay, and that is, I think, that's an integral part which needs to come in, and maybe you share your thoughts on that one.
Thank you very much. I had thought of it in that aspect as well. I had several upcoming entrepreneurs who has been consulting, and they have tried. As I have mentioned, one of the challenges is to comply to standard, knowing how, what they need to do. Some of them are just failing to move on because of that. And then they are stagnant there because there is no a policy which tells you when you reach this stage, where do you get your barcode? Where do you get your e-numbers? Where do you get your products analyzed which are complying to standard? Where do you get certified results which you can put on your label? There's so many things which are happening. Ministry of Trade will tell you this. If you are lucky, sometimes you find the right person or somebody who knows you can direct you to the right person, or sometimes you don't even know where to go. You don't know what is available when it comes to product development in the Ministry of Trade, what is in the Ministry of Agriculture, what is handled by Ministry of Health. It's so a lot of pieces you have to put together. As I mentioned, that the process of product development is very complex. People think it's a straightforward. And then there is, one of the challenges is, as I said, private sector. That is the financial issues. It's also, in some cases, a challenge. Do some people even know what do you have to do to find a person to finance you? How do you get a loan, for instance? Or how do you share your findings? There's a lot of gap. It's not only even one. The whole process has a lot of gap. When I was a student for graduating, you go present your thesis. Companies like Mars, Nestle, Unilever come and listen. And then immediately good ideas are grabbed. And then they are implemented. That's how they start. They do it in that way. But back also, if you go in their Ministry of Trade, there's a clear policy which talks about how research findings are channeled into a commercial level. Do we have that? It sounds like it's not something big, but it can in long term also hinder the progress. But I thank you very much for your point, because those are also some of the challenges we have.
Actually, what I have is a comment, or rather a suggestion. As Dr. Van Hal said, research is being done. I know I'm also from University of Namibia. I'm also a food scientist, and I'm aware of the product, but part of research, I think, is also publication. And publication is not being done, if we are to be honest. And so I think we need to focus on publications of research so that people can be aware, and then also dissemination of data. Because then if people are aware of these things, then they can come up with, like he said, people that have entrepreneurial mind can then find ways of commercializing these products. So I think we need to improve on publications and dissemination of these results so that people can be aware of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The comment is taken, and I have to share with you that the university is busy creating under the library the system which can allow all the research, as many research findings as from 1997 for the faculty. And perhaps maybe another way how it can be disseminated, that link, will be very useful. Because it might be done at the university level and then people cannot access it, or investors cannot access it. But I have also to share with you that some of the things we are thinking it's not well known, but the interest of also industrial development in the country is very less. There are a lot of people who are selling Namibian-derived produce on the market. Some are sent outside the country, and some of them I know where they are going. Some are sold on Amazon and so forth, but they are harvested here. So industrial development interest. So incentive, maybe we need a system which has a good, attractive for investors, and at the same time, not just investor, for someone also to feel that I should start something here, I will benefit. Just like other countries are doing it. Like for instance, the bureaucracy, the system should be more reluctant a little bit when you are starting, not just to see yourself piling up with a lot of credit on the Ministry of Finance when you register, things like that, so that people are properly guided, and also incentive and attractive system where people can easily work together. Because the system sometimes can also make people not feel like proceeding to do business.
Nutrition, 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 nutrition.